Renza Webster. We have our health officials, P.S. Foster, our CMO, Dr. Alicia, and we also have David Lynch, our Commissioner of Police. I turn you over now to Dr. Webster for his opening statements.
Good afternoon, Anguillians, here and abroad, all listening and residents of Anguilla. It's indeed a pleasure to be here on this Monday afternoon. I want to, welcome, the PS for Health, Foster Rogers, Dr. Aisha Andrew, the Chief Medical Officer, Commissioner of Police, David Lynch. You, the press, and certainly, moderator, Mr. Courtney Morton, who is a ministerial assistant in the Ministry of Finance and doing a great job at that. So, it's I'd like to be very brief in my opening remarks and just say that the vaccine uptake is going in the right direction. And we certainly want to thank the people of Anguilla for realizing that, and this is the only way we can get out of this pandemic is to be vaccinated, immunized, and keep healthy. I want to thank our health team for the great job that they're doing to roll out the vaccine, also doing the surveillance monitoring for those who unfortunately have COVID, and the good thing is most are recovering. Thank the United Kingdom government for procurement and providing us with the vaccines. There are countries in the region that are still waiting and hoping that they can get enough vaccines to get their populations immunized. The vaccine protects not only you, but those around you. The decreased chance of infection, the decreased chance of getting severe disease or dying, the decreased chance of transmitting the virus to others. We know that tourism is our main industry, and the only way we can get Anguilla back to our economy improving and getting this country open is to get us vaccinated so that we don't have to fear when others come in. Potential visitors are asking, not what they can do in Anguilla, but these days they're asking what is the level of vaccine uptake, because they too are concerned that they want to come to a country that they can feel safe. So I want to thank all of those who've gotten their first doses, those who've gotten both doses, and those who are registered, and those who are contemplating it. I say, let's get all eligible adults vaccinated so that we can be safe. Thank you, and I turn you back over to Mr. Morton.
Thank you, Premier, for those opening remarks. I now turn you over to P.S. Foster Rogers.
Well, I'll just go first as usual and just give the brief update. I guess no news is good news, knock on wood, for the time being. So we're still at the same numbers. Our last cases from the cluster were from May 10th. We have not confirmed any additional cases. But of course, we have to be patient. Remember, we said that we need to wait the required number of incubation periods, as is the convention, to say that we are actually out of the woods. So we're not quite out of the woods yet. We still do have a couple of tests pending from contacts of those most recently confirmed cases as well. But more importantly, we need to do what we're doing to continue so that we prevent any spread. Remember, we said with the cluster situation and a cluster of this size, we know that there's a possibility, a high possibility that we miss one or two cases. And the way to mitigate against any further spread is to do what we've been doing in terms of the restriction of movements and the public health measures when we're out with the mask wearing, distancing, and so on. So let us not forget but we're very well poised to be able to reset to where we were pre-cluster. But that's going to take the cooperation of all of us and the patience of all of us. I know some persons are anxious to get on with it. Some of the stores want to reopen. Just want to admonish about rushing that, because we've seen where countries, when they let their guard down too quickly, then they go right back and they have to go back to where they were previously. You have to start over again. We've kind of seen that with those cases. Remember, it was a full week and a half before these additional persons came in, and we're feeling good, beginning to breathe easy, and literally an hour before the press conference, 2 came in, and then a third. So we just have to bear that in mind. We're doing well. I think people have been extremely patient and extremely cooperative. If it makes a difference, it helps any. I mean, others have been in a sort of lockdown state for much longer than we have. So we just beg your patience and continued cooperation as we try to keep this thing in check. And hopefully we're out of the worst part, but you never know with this virus, and a slip is a slide with this virus. We've seen it so many times before, so just bear that in mind. Okay, so as the Premier said, we've had most persons have actually recovered. We can say that there are 3 active cases at the moment. We'll see how that goes. And having screened almost 1,500 persons and really exhausting that aspect. As noted, the vaccine uptake has been very, very good. We've seen a boost of like 3,000 persons since this unfortunate incident. So in every disappointment, there is opportunity. And I think people are seizing an opportunity and realizing the situation that we are in and how close this thing can be and how quickly things can get out of control. The only thing we say, okay, today we have over 9,000 persons registered, which is wonderful. 9,363 persons registered on the portal. Of those, 8,841 persons have had their first dose. That's somewhere between 70 and 88% of our target population. And we said we want to look at 70% of our population. So we're really going for all persons that are eligible to be vaccinated. Furthermore, of those, we have 4,479 persons having received their second dose. We're seeing improvements in all areas. I think the incentives are working as well with the private sector. Just a point to note, we've noted a dip in persons coming from the first dose. So the team is asking me to clarify something, because prior to the cluster, we made the statement that for first-line workers, you need to get your first dose by May 15th so that you'll be ready for this July 1st opening, right? But that is not to say you cannot get a first dose. Up to now, we'll be giving first and second doses until the vaccines, if we use up all the doses here. So come on, if you want to get your first dose as well, you can still come. So we just don't, hopefully that was not a sort of conflicting or confusing message, because we're noticing a lot of people were asking, can I still get a first dose? And it was mostly persons showing up for second doses. So we have at least 500 to go that are in the portal, and we would admonish, would encourage more persons to get registered. We'd love to see that number go up to 12,000 and have all those persons vaccinated. I think that's the main point for now. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chief Medical Officer. Just a few comments I'd like to make. We do have on island 20,000 doses, which is enough to cover 10,000 persons with 2 doses. So really and truly, I don't want people to fear right now of not being able to get, because if we have 9,000 persons registered, 9,100 about, we still have enough doses to carry another 900. So if we so far have 8,800 about, so if we still have 8,000 persons with their first dose, we really do have enough to give another 1,200 or thereabout. So please come out. We do have the doses to get persons up to 10,000 persons registered. If we need more, it's possible that we can look at doing that. But at this point in time, let us see if we can get these 10,000 doses completed. There's one more comment I'd like to make before I hand back to the moderator. I think over the weekend we were very concerned and very startled that even in the middle of a lockdown, we had persons who were breaching our borders. I think we need to be very clear from the health perspective. This is very dangerous activity. I have been speaking about this now since last year, March, indicating that this is the most likely scenario and indicating that people have to be very circumspect. In fact, that is why we have the emergency procedures in place for the borders to ensure that persons cannot traverse the southern borders without permission of the Commissioner of Police. So really and truly, when we learned that there was some issues over the weekend with persons with boats coming into the waters illegally. We are not only concerned, but we are very, you know, what do I say? In the middle of a lockdown, it's very difficult when you have Anguillians in the middle of a lockdown still going out and doing stuff like that. It shows that there's a lot of disregard for this virus, and there's a lot of disregard for the hard work that the Anguillians have put in over the last 3 weeks. Persons have really responded to the regulations. Persons have really responded to the lockdown. Persons have really responded to restriction of movements. And when persons do these things, it shows a lack of respect for the entire country. So we ask people to please bear with us. We know it's difficult. We know it is a very difficult situation. But if you look at what other countries and happen in other countries right now, the other countries who are shutting down under states of emergency because the situation is not managed. We don't want to get to that state and go. We were almost there a few weeks ago. We were really almost there a few weeks ago. But luckily, people responded. Luckily, we did not have to go that extra mile. So we want to respect the efforts of the people of Angola to keep this country safe. And I implore people, just a little while longer, we have to make sure that we get this country back in the right footing. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Anjurin and PS Rogers, for your update. I'll now go over to Commissioner Foley's. Mr. David Lynch, for your comments.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I'd just like to echo what the Director of Health has just said, really. Compliance has been really good, but there are one or two people who are probably not complying with the rules, and they are putting other people at risk. So we really would ask people to do what everybody else is doing, which is comply with the regulations. Compliance has been really, really good, but we have got a couple of pieces of information. The people over the weekend have not complied fully, and we will investigate those, and we'll certainly do some targeted patrols over this week and next weekend, particularly to make sure people do comply should they choose to put other people's lives at risks. But overall, the weekend, the compliance was really, really good. Since I last came here on Friday, I'll give you the figures. Since last Friday, we've done a total of 23 land patrols. We've done 9 vehicle checkpoints. We've stopped 47 vehicles. There's been 2 breaches. 2 individuals have breached the regulations. 2 of those people will be prosecuted. Both those persons will be prosecuted. They've both been arrested. There have been 9 sea patrols. There's been 3 vessels in the ocean spotted, and those 3 vessels have all been intercepted. And I'd just like to thank the people that are starting to contact us now on that confidential line of www.gov.ai/911. The information is incredibly useful because it's keeping everybody safe. So I'd encourage people to either ring the main telephone number line here at police headquarters, or if you feel more comfortable ringing that or emailing that confidential email line, which is www.gov.ai/911. We do look at it several times a day. We do respond to it. So thank you very much for the people that are sending us that information. Thank you very much to everyone who's complying. For the ones, 1 or 2, literally, who do not, or have chosen not to comply, please be wary that we will be following up on all the intelligence. And it is really down to the community to give us more and more intelligence, because I can assure you we will follow up on that intelligence, and we'll make sure that if people are breaching it, we'll try and prosecute them for the good of everybody else on the island. And that is my update today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. At this time, we open the lines for any questions from our media homes. Houses, sorry. Any questions? This question is for Dr. Alicia. Could you tell us, give us an update again on those figures for those that are already taking a first dose and those already taking the second dose of the vaccine?
Yes, those that have already taken the first dose, 8,841. And then of those, 4,479 have received their second dose as well.
Thank you. We now have a question from Class FM.
Yes, good afternoon to you. A couple of questions we have here for you. How many persons had to be quarantined coming out of the last 3 persons? That's a question for the Chief Medical Officer.
We had about 4 persons quarantined from the last set of cases.
Okay. And you mentioned that the target is 12,000. We heard that, time and time again here to achieve herd immunity. Will the country still be fully reopening on July 1? If this is not achieved, and if so, does full opening, without immunity, how will that go? How will that work?
Well, recall that on July 1st, we are planning to have persons come in who are fully vaccinated and do away the quarantine. So the other measures will have to be in place for persons who are not vaccinated on the island. But remember that we're planning to have a full opening with no restrictions or no permissions and so on October. I think we're still on track for that. And we're actually on track to meet the 10,000, 12,000 if things go as they are. But we really need people to finish this and to come forward and vaccinate. So I believe we're on track.
Just a further clarification also, Hammer. As of July 1st, all visitors coming to Angola must be vaccinated. The only persons who will come to Angola who are not vaccinated are residents and belongers of Angola. They still will have to quarantine. So residents come back and they're vaccinated, then they can go, and there's no quarantine. But the residents come back and they're not vaccinated, they still have to quarantine. So let's be very clear. Persons come back on July 1st. All visitors coming to Angola must be vaccinated. They will not, who can be, except children and so forth, but only residents, only adult residents who reside in Angola, live in Angola and belongers will be allowed to come back who are not vaccinated, but they still have to go quarantine.
All right, and in terms of the percentages for hotel workers, I realize that, for some time now that has been a point of discussion here, and that group was lagging for some time, especially since many properties are now saying that the frontline workers need to be vaccinated. How's that going?
It seems to be lingering around 50%, but what we've noted too, in terms of the data capture, and we're finding the data capture in terms of the fields available, some persons are putting other and then putting where they work. So we're hoping that we're slightly better off than the numbers are showing, but it's still not optimal. So we have to do some refining and targeting in that area, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Class FM, for your questions. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
I have Brenda.
Hi, Brenda, you may go ahead.
All right. This is a question really for tourism. People who are fully vaccinated are now allowed to go to restaurants and for sit-down dining. But what people are asking are, which of these restaurants are eligible for this? Which of the restaurants have people who are fully vaccinated? The staff, I think, is supposed to be fully vaccinated. So can anybody tell us which restaurants? Because otherwise people don't know which to go to.
Can you please clarify, are you talking about restaurants that are not in the bubble or restaurants that are out of the bubble?
Well, I didn't think we had any bubble anymore. I thought it was a case of people who are fully vaccinated can go to a restaurant where the staff are fully vaccinated. But the question is, we don't know which of the restaurants fall into that category.
As we said before, both the staff and the patrons have to be fully vaccinated. So in theory, any restaurant that's open now that's serving persons, both the staff and the restaurant should have been fully vaccinated or should be fully vaccinated.
Well, what people want to know is which restaurants are fully vaccinated. We don't know.
Well, I guess at some point in time, shortly, you get a list of those because the regulations quickly indicate what those restaurants must do in terms of keeping a list of the patrons and those type of things. I would suggest that at some point then tourism will have to get those things listed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. We now go to Grace FM.
Yes, good afternoon. I have a couple of questions. One is first is for the CMO, and it concerns the vaccine. Is the second dose of the vaccine the same as the first dose, or is there a difference?
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this before, that it's the same dose, just
Okay.
given 8 to 12 weeks after the first one to get that response, the immune response.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. For our Commissioner Lynch, please. We learned of the couple of vessels that were apprehended or intercepted over the weekend, and one had some goods on board. Could you tell us what kind of goods they were on board, please?
I can't really, because obviously it's an investigation that's ongoing and the people themselves have a right to go before the court and all the evidence heard first. But there were certainly goods confiscated, and that matter will go through the court, and obviously that will then be a public record and people will be able to find out at that point.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace FM, for your questions. Any more questions?
Yes, I guess my hand is not working. This is Dawn Hodge from the Herald. Can you hear me?
Right ahead, Don.
Okay, I have two questions. The first question, I just want to reconfirm with the health team that the number for herd immunity is indeed 12,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the estimate we're working with, and that's a minimum. We do have some cushion. I mean, the thing is, when the estimates you do, it's never a fixed or exact number, but we are using between the PAHO estimate and the WHO estimate for the population. So we put it at 12,600, which is 70% of the population, and that's a minimum. So we're going for, we're going to look at worrying about those figures when we really run out of people to vaccinate, and we're far from that, you know. So we're working with a good number, and we're working with established population estimates that are accepted internationally.
Okay, great. Thank you. And my second question is for the commissioner. Commissioner, you, in your brief, you said that there were 2 people over the weekend that were booked and prosecuted and arrested. Are those 2 people part of the boat stoppage that we got the PR memo about, or is this in addition to that?
No, that's the same people,
Okay, and then I guess the follow-on to that is the memo talked about citing, and I believe it said stopping 2 boats. So, and there was a lot of description about the first boat that was followed, I guess, to Island Harbor. What happened to the second boat?
Yeah, I'd have to check the second boat. I thought there was 1 boat, but I'll go back and check the records and give you an update on Thursday when we next meet. But I thought there was just 1 boat, and there were 3 boats intercepted. So I'll come back to you with the details on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Don. MBR, I see your hand is still up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, that was a mistake. I have to take it down.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions from the press? This question is for PS Rogers, the CMO. When we are open on the 31st, what are the protocols for people traveling back and forth to St. Martin on day trips?
Well, as it stands right now, the protocols are still in place for anybody coming to Angola. 3 days, 3 to 5 days testing. You come to Angola, you test. If you're not vaccinated, you quarantine. If you're vaccinated, you can go. That's from the 1st of July. Certainly from the end of this month, going into June, the same protocols in place before are still in place now. If you're vaccinated, it's 7 days. If you're not vaccinated, it's 14 days or 10 days, depending where you're coming from. But it is 3 days to 5 days before you have to take a test. So we're still not to the point yet where somebody can go to St. Martin and come back the same day. It's just, we're not there yet.
Thank you. Any additional?
I have another question. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
This is Dawn Hodge again. And since you have Foster, since I'm looking at Foster, I'll just ask him the question. The masks, CDC, I think it's last Friday, lessened the mask requirements for the states, which has created all kinds of havoc as to who does and who doesn't wear it. Has that CDC ruling affected the Anguilla protocol for masks?
No, well, as it is right here, we always look at a local context as well. We try to get the gold standard of best practice from CDC and WHO, but at this point in time, we're not changing because we sort of do stuff in a measured way. As you can see, we just don't jump on new protocols when stuff is announced in the international media. We look at stuff in a measured way. That is why we won't be giving persons who are vaccinated full rein until July 1st, even though some countries are doing that. So we look at stuff in a very measured way. We'll not simply yet be implementing CDC mask mandate. As you can tell, it's still creating some issues in the US, but we will look at that and do stuff in a measured way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dawn.
A question here regarding the concern about persons who are now recovering and their ability to reinfect to become contagious again. That would not be the case. They've cleared the infection and no longer infectious. And even in situations, and let me speak slowly and carefully, even in countries where you have the virus circulating and there's community transmission, the risk of reinfection in those first maybe 6 to 8 months is extremely minimal. And we're not in a situation where we have a circulating virus. We have a cluster that's seemingly under control. And even in those circumstances, you don't see persons getting reinfected like that. That is not to say that persons cannot have residual symptoms and the so-called long haul COVID and whatnot. Our cohort doesn't seem to have been candidates like that would have symptoms reappearing or whatnot. So that's another thing that's off the table in terms of our risk at the moment. But short answer to that is no, there is no risk of them reinfecting anybody or becoming infectious again after having cleared the virus.
Thank you. We look over to the Anguillian.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm James Oregon here. I have 2 questions for the PS, please. If a couple is traveling with children and both father and mother are vaccinated, children are vaccinated, would the couple be quarantined for the sake of the children?
The current protocols is that between now and the 1st of July, yes. In between now and the 1st of July, if there's a mix of persons who are vaccinated and not vaccinated, then it's considered a group with non-vaccinated. But at the 1st of July, the children will be considered with the parents to leave as if they're vaccinated.
Thank you. Another question. Scientists have found that testing with the saliva swab is just as effective as testing with a throat nasal swab. Would you be interested in following the test for saliva swab anytime soon?
Well, let me address that, Karen, and I'll let the CMO come in. I don't know which scientist you're referring to, but certainly the saliva swab, the saliva and the nasopharyngeal, they are 2 different levels of sensitivity altogether. And when we speak of sensitivity, we speak of the possibility of a test picking up negative cases. When we speak to specificity, we speak to the possibility of a test picking up positive cases. The specificity of the saliva test is much less than those tests in nasopharyngeal that we do for the swab and so forth. So it is not the same. It is certainly not the gold standard. There are people who do it. There are states that do it. There are universities that do it as a screening test. But even as a screening test, not as a test to confirm, but even those possible as a screening test, it is not as specific or even as sensitive as the test that we do in terms of the nasopharyngeal swab.
There's no reason for us to be settling for a test that's going to pick up fewer cases. Why would we put the community at risk? That's absolutely not even a consideration. That's outrageous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harrigan. I'll go to Grace FM. Mr.
No,
Harrigan?
my hand is not up.
I was showing up. I'm sorry about that. Any additional questions?
And yes, good afternoon again, class of here. For the CMO. Doc, you spoke earlier about persons recovered from COVID-19, and I have a thinking here a bit here. Those persons once recovered, will they be required to take the vaccine still, or how does that work?
Well, absolutely, persons are encouraged, even who have recovered from COVID, to take the vaccine. And the guidance is that if you're asymptomatic, you do it within 1 week of your positive test. And if you had symptoms, you do it 1 week after your symptoms have resolved. But absolutely, the guidance has been for a while that persons who have had the infection, that's called, it confers natural immunity, but there's no substitute for the vaccination. So definitely they should get vaccinated. And some have already asked when they can start and when they can schedule their vaccinations, which is very wise.
Just to follow on for that, when persons have done the tests, they have found that persons who have been vaccinated have a much higher level of the antibodies in their body than persons who have simply been infected by the virus. And it lasts much longer as well, the vaccination.
Thank you. Brenda, you may go ahead.
Yes. As far as some of the services that are allowed, cleaning services were listed as something that was allowed, but I'm wondering, how does this apply to an individual person going to a private home? Is that still allowed or not?
Yeah, I mean, cleaning is cleaning. At the end of the day, if somebody needs their house clean and they have a cleaner that comes in, we didn't really, distinguish between big cleaning companies and smaller cleaning companies. At this point in time, we feel that persons can have their houses clean once you follow the proper protocols.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Any additional questions?
If I can just address a matter, we've had a comment about face shields. We would want to indicate that certainly face shields are important in certain contexts, but it is difficult to manage face shields. And we, from Ministry of Health standpoint, we prefer if you use masks, whether they're cloth masks or disposable masks. Wearing the face shield is simply not as easy to do, and we would ask people to refrain from them unless you really have to in a professional setting. But if you're on the street, if you're going to stores and so forth, please wear the face mask.
Thank you. P.S. Rogers. Are there any additional questions?
I see a comment here about why targeting first responders and frontline, but we have been saying that those are persons that should be first and foremost in line to get vaccinated. Even discussing the possibility of policy and regulations, which some are objecting to. But yes, we keep saying it. We keep saying if you're in certain jobs and so on, you have to understand the risks, and you have to understand that it's very important that you think seriously about getting vaccinated for the benefit of yourself and for the country. So I think that's something that we've been discussing at length, and how to make that happen as well.
Thank you. Brenda, see your hand is up. Scotty?
Oh, this hand business doesn't seem to be working today, because according to me, my hand is lowered. But sorry, no more questions.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the press?
Yes, a question came in a while ago here to us. What about babies re-entering 1 year or younger? Testing, is that a requirement for those babies? CMO?
Yeah, we've always been testing babies on entry. And mostly when they're a certain age or a certain size, we'll do the oropharyngeal testing for those. So we have been testing babies. And you have seen, as we've said before, anybody of any age can get COVID-19. And countries are waking up to that reality, even countries that had put restrictions on age for limits testing for children. So we're seeing outbreaks in Europe and other countries because of due to the pediatric population as well. So we've always tested everyone that comes in.
Thank you. Class FM. Are there any other questions? Or if there's no other questions, I'll have to ask Doc to move forward his closing remarks. Dr. Lorenzo.
Yeah, before I go, if we can ask, the others on the panel to give their remarks, please.
Ladies first. Ladies first. No, I mean it's about keeping this thing under control in terms of the cluster and cooperation in that regard, and getting on with the business of vaccination. Those are the two things going forward. And we have the real opportunity to reset to where we were before the cluster, which should be remarkable. And then to go forward full speed ahead with the vaccination. And I believe that's the way forward. I think I would agree that's the way forward. Two big tasks ahead.
Yes, Premier, I think from a Ministry of Health standpoint, we're quite happy with the response so far. We would like people to continue. We know there are three different levels of persons in the community. There are persons who will take the vaccine readily and easily. There are persons who are a little hesitant and they need information. And if they get the right information, they'll make the right decision. And there are persons who are just anti-vax, conspiracy theorists. And no matter what you do, you really can't convince them. So we are trying to focus on the persons who are hesitant, who just want information, who are truly yearning for information to make the right decision. If you feel you need information, please contact us, and we certainly give you the best information that we can.
Thank you, P.S. Rogers.
Commissioner of Police.
Yeah, I was a little bit slow there, getting the cursor working, but I'm back. No, not really. It really is a fantastic effort by the population of this island, doing a fantastic job. And again, just asking everyone to be really compliant, because we're so near the end in terms of trying to get this process through. We really would like the people who think about breaching it to really think twice, because they are really gambling with other people's lives. So I really would ask people to be very, very reflective on whether or not they wish to try and breach these regulations. But overall, just a big thank you for everybody who's doing such a fantastic job amongst all the community and keeping everybody safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dr. Ellis-Webster.
Yeah, it seems that Mr. Pickering from Channel 4 has a question, and usually his questions are very timely. So we let Mr. Pickering ask his question if he still wants to, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Pickering.
Well, his hand was up, but it seems like it's down now. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you, moderator, for this and for handling the questions and the panel. I think it's very helpful to note that we're going in the right direction. As the PS said, we have some persons who are vaccine hesitant, and then there's some who are vaccine defiant, and we certainly know that we all have to live together. We just want persons to realize that we're all in this together. And so you want to look out for yourself, but you also want to look out for those around you. Look to your left, look to your right, and getting the vaccine yourself may be the way that you save the life of the person next to you. And also their family members who if they get infected and can go home, and even though they may be vaccinated and not get sick themselves, and there's still a small chance they can transmit, even though with the vaccination, the transmission rate is lower. So that's why we're saying everybody who's eligible should get vaccinated. And look out for the children who can't be vaccinated at this point in time because the vaccine hasn't been cleared for them at this point. You know, the question is, there are lots of questions being asked about the restricted hours, the vaccinated, non-vaccinated, whether they'll be able to move about freely when these restrictions are lifted the end of the month. Certainly, as we, you know, the health team, and then we get to executive council, we come up with the decisions on that. And these are all, you know, taken into consideration. Certainly, as the CMO said earlier, there will be, you know, certain protocols have to remain in place for those who are not vaccinated, even after, you know, July 1st. And so these are decisions that are made based on the epidemiology, based on the science, and based on making the decisions that are in the best interest of the people of Anguilla. So I want to thank you again for being here. Thank you for participating. Thanks for the interesting questions. It shows that the public is involved directly with this process. You're doing a good job following the protocols and the regulations. I want to thank you for that. It makes the lives of those who have to police this, who have to come up with the protocols and regulations much easier if we are compliant. And so that's all I can ask as a you know, administration that is responsible for all the lives of all the people. We want to make sure that we get it right, because to not get it right can lead to, as you heard said earlier, long COVID disease, which has you know, debilitating consequences, or death. And certainly none of us want to be in that position. So again, thank you very much, and we look forward. Our next press conference will be next, well, I think next Monday is a holiday on the 24th. So we'll let you know in due course when the next update is going to be. I want to thank you very much. God bless you and continue to bless Anguilla.
Thank you. And good afternoon to all. Bye.